You are now listening to the Serious Growth Podcast with your host, Leo Costa Jr.
Hey guys, welcome to Serious Growth Podcast. Made it again, baby. One day at a time. One freaking day at a time. You know, it's important that it's those baby steps. I don't look too far down the road. I mean, my big goal is way down the road as far as what I expect and what to happen, but just make it real. Let's just get through day one, and then let's do it again tomorrow. So I'm here, and we're going to have a nice little chat today. I got to tell you guys something. I just listened to something on Audible. I'm actually listening to it right now. And it's a Australian psychiatrist. It's based on his story. Check this out. The guy is a Holocaust survivor. And he lost several members of his family. I mean, this thing that happened, you know, this story that he's telling, I mean, it just doesn't get more brutal than that. It's hard to listen to. I'm listening to it because, as I thought, it gives me things to think about and tools. I think that's probably today the theme of what I want to talk to you about are tools that you can use that can change your life immediately, that can produce results immediately. But check this out. What this guy learned from that experience, and he was in the camps for quite some time, and he was pushed to the brink. I mean, the stories are just, I don't know how he made it. I don't. When I listen to a story like this, it really, really puts things into perspective that, you know what, I've got nothing to bitch about, and I can do a lot more. I expect a lot more from myself, especially after I listen to some guy like this. But he said that, and this is based on facts, that the people who were able to survive that Holocaust experience, the difference between the ones that survived and the ones that didn't, were that the ones that did had sense of purpose. Think about that. Sense of purpose. They were able to survive that. And what his sense of purpose was, because that was my first question, what the hell was your sense of purpose? His sense of purpose was that when they captured him and put him in the camp, he was in the middle of writing this book on psychiatry or psychology. He was a psychologist, I guess. He was writing a book about psychology and the tools of psychology, the whole thing that went into that. The point is this: his sense of purpose was when he was in the middle of that nightmare that he was living on a daily basis. His sense of purpose was he had to finish that book. He had to finish that book. So when we're talking about sense of purpose, you know, you could sense of purpose in this scenario with what we're talking about could be a stated goal. His stated goal, his sense of purpose was to finish that book. That kept him alive. So how can we use that tool? How can we use that tool in, look, bodybuilding is just part of what we do. The act of bodybuilding, I think we've talked about this before. It's a hell of a tool that you can use that mirrors life. I've mentioned that because of the elements of what goes into that. But sense of purpose it goes beyond, in this case, bodybuilding, what you're doing with your training and your nutrition. That's kind of where I'm going with this. I think that what ends up happening, and when you really take this thing to the next level spiritually, I'm not big on some of this stuff when it comes to, you know, but spiritually, I think that's where you need to take this. We've talked about the three components. Now, the three components, as we know, are resistance training, cardiovascular conditioning, and nutrition. So think of those three components as your tools, but you have to go deeper. It's not good enough just to have the tools. Now, it's really important to have those tools because, as I mentioned before, in order for you to get the most out of the tools, the three tools, the components that I'm talking about, you need to do them all together to get the maximum, to get that compound effect. But that spiritual part that I'm talking about is your inner animal. It's getting primitive, baby, to get to that level. It's a work in progress. It's a heavy duty work in progress because it's something that you work on every single day. And obviously it's a conscious choice that you need to make. It might not be for everybody, but I got to tell you, as I'm learning from firsthand experience, the deeper that I've gotten into this thing, and bodybuilding has taken me there. But the deeper that I get into this thing, the more I understand how valuable that sense of purpose is. And I'm on a path now where I want to make my whole life mantra, my daily habit. I want to make that a sense of purpose. I am living with a sense of purpose on a day-to-day basis. And what I'm learning about that is that's for me what creates a true calm for me. I've never been this happy, and I've got a lot of stuff going on in my life right now. I can tell you this, I got a lot of stuff going on that if I was 5 years or 10 years earlier in the spot that I'm in right now, I would have been losing my shit. I'm sure about it because I put myself in stressful situations on purpose. That's part of my personality. I didn't really know that until I started learning more about my inner animal. All right, let's take a quick break so I can tell you about our product.
Do you want a bone-crushing grip? Good, because you're gonna get one with the amazing new TRS gripper. It's a progressive grip builder with longer handles and a special ergonomic design that's like a dozen hand grippers in one. Start off easy and work your way up to quickly build your grip strength from wet noodle to pulverizing. The package includes a video from the world-famous strength coach, Dr. Russ Horine, the man who worked with Leo Costa to help bring you big beyond belief in the Bulgarian Power Burst. Dr. Horine shows you a simple and easy to follow workout plan that takes just minutes a day right from in front of your TV set if you want. So click on the link below and let's get started building you a stronger, firmer, bone-crushing grip.
But here's what I've learned. Again, getting back to those tools, it's got to go deeper than that. So how do you get the most out of those tools? Here's what I've come up with. I'm not making all this stuff up like from scratch. I'm not. You know, one of the things I urge you to do, and I hope that this is what this podcast does to a certain degree, is be open-minded enough to learn from everywhere, from anywhere. Don't be too closed-minded. I have a tendency of doing that. It's in part of my personality. It's not necessarily a good thing. I think being closed-minded and honed in and focused, I think that is a good thing. But it can go too far where you don't, when you think you know it all, you're in trouble, pal. You're done. I mean, you don't think that you can learn anymore, you're dead in the water. I promise you that. So be open-minded to learn from other people. And I can tell you this, here's what I get now, okay? I've got these tools. How do I make them more effective? I need to build a greater foundation, and I need to build it in a very specific way. Just like when I talk about developing a training program, I talk about building it from the ground up. Lay the foundation, kind of use the metaphor of building the house. You lay the foundation, put the walls up, and then the roof. Any other order is not going to work. And if it does, it's going to be a house of cards. It's going to come down the minute the little wind blows in. So it has to be done in a certain way. All right. What I'm talking about now is, think of it in a pyramid. So the first section, the longest part of that pyramid, the widest part, I should say, is mind. The three things that I'm talking about here is the spiritual side, the inner animal of us. It goes in this order based on my interpretation and my opinion. The widest part is mind. The second level is body. And the third level is soul. Mind, body, and soul. Soul, for me, my interpretation of that is now I've gotten to the highest degree of being instinctual, intuitive. I can hear my body speak to me, and it's not a crazy voice. It's real. I've gotten to that point now. It used to be that when I felt that feeling, or I was, listening to my intuition, I didn't really trust it 100%. And I don't know that you can unless you go through these steps like I'm saying. Mind, it starts in your mind. Mind is your command control. That's where you need to somehow develop your sense of purpose, your stated goal, whatever that may be. You need to find that. Don't be too concerned that it doesn't come to you right away. I think you got to stumble along. I talked about one of the ways that you can tell if you're on the right path is if you're doing something that you love. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is, but when you're doing something that you love, you're on the right path because you have passion at that point. You're going to look at things much differently. It's a game changer, man. I know that I've talked about the fact that I was in that job where I was on the dairy. My family has, I come from a line of my culture being in the dairy business, and the next generation takes over. In other words, it's expected. I got to tell you something. That's some heavy duty shit. Culturally, I think I understand it to a degree, but when you get caught, I think when you get caught in that trap I did, it leads to a lot of unhappiness. It's just a job, and it's my, I'm dead. Part of me is dead at some point. I was fortunate that I got out. I'm not saying that I didn't learn all kinds of stuff from being in that life for quite a while. But getting back to what I'm talking about is do something that you have passion for. Do something that you love. Do something that you would do for free. And don't worry about whether or not it's a normal job or it's something that's really non-traditional. Don't worry about that. It's hard to wrap your head around that. I get it. But don't worry about that. So again, we're developing that foundation, that mind, that stated purpose. When you have and come across what you think is your stated purpose, then you got to be proactive. Now the mind has to engage the body to do what command is telling it to do. Through repetitions, the body becomes its function. Have you guys heard me say that before? This is how this ties in. Done in any other order will not give you the best outcome. When you're in that mind telling your body what to do, because it will do that, repetition being the mother of skill, at some point turns into something that becomes automatic. That's when you float into the top section. Mind, body, soul. That's when you float into that section. You can probably imagine how much time this is going to take. This is a lifetime commitment. Now, that may sound awful, but it's not. It's exactly the opposite of that, because you keep discovering yourself at a deeper level. All of a sudden, you're like what I'm talking about now. You know, at my age, at 68 years of age, and I know 67, what am I doing? I know that as we get older, I think we start becoming aware a little bit more of our immortality. But I got to tell you something. The deal breaker, the key is this: knowing how to get to that point. You know, it's like having a map. The way that I'm laying this out for you, this pyramid, this foundational pyramid, and the tools that we've talked about with the components that you must, when you put that stuff all together, it's kind of like what happens when you are first learning how to play a game of, let's just say in football, you go to a higher level. You're now playing varsity. You're now playing college ball. As you're going up that ladder, as you're coming up this ladder, this foundation pyramid that I'm talking about, the game at times is very fast. Things are too hard for you to keep up with. But through mind setting your body in motion, through repetition being the mother of skill, all of a sudden the game starts slowing down. And the longer that you stay in this path, because see, that's what we don't do. We're there for a little bit, but then we get distracted, we get discouraged, we lose hope. And the next thing you know, you're on the floor in the fetal position. But when you keep staying, when some of these things that you're doing are still in that path of yours, you always have the passion for what you're doing and learning how to suffer, because you have to embrace the suffering. It doesn't change. This stuff doesn't miraculously, just because you're in this path and you're doing what you love, the suffering doesn't go away. You don't want it to go away. And if it goes away, you're dead in the water. You're dead in the water. You have to embrace the suffering. You have to embrace emotional pain, mental anguish, physical pain. And guess what? You need to be the master of your fate. You need to take yourself down that road. Of course, we need people on the outside that will help us at some point, but it still comes down to you. Mind, body, and soul. Sense of purpose. Take yourself to that level every single day. As my coach once told me, Eric Woodmark, he said, do something even if it's wrong. You must do that. You'll stumble onto the things that are right at some point if you just stay in the game. Stay in the game. And the worst thing that you can do, you know, it's like when people lose hope, it's a proven fact. They die off. Heard of the saying that people have, that the reason he died was from a broken heart. Maybe they lost a spouse. Life is tough, baby. It's brutal. The only thing that's going to keep it together for you is if you've got it built on solid ground. I highly encourage that you take this journey. One of the beautiful things that I can speak from now is just from my gut, from inside, and being lucky enough to be able to suffer quite a bit and to fail on a regular basis. I'm lucky. Do you understand how lucky I am? I didn't think this way just from one day to the next. It's that process. Build your foundation to reach your inner animal. You will find a stillness and a calmness that's going to blow your mind. It's the most amazing thing. I'm going to leave this today talking from this perspective instead of talking about, the weight, the exercises that you can do and the nutrition that you can eat. All that is for naught as far as I'm concerned. It's not for naught, but it's, you got to learn how to do this in the most efficient way, because that's what we always talk about in training. At some point, think about it this way, how it correlates with your exercises, for example. You don't learn right off the bat what your core group of exercises that always work. You can't find that out. You can't possibly find that out in a month, a year, 2 years. You can't. Don't fool yourself. You can't. It's a process. You got to find this out. It's that journey that we're talking about. I've stayed in the game long enough to figure this thing out. And I'm really confident because of that experience, of all that time that's been put in. Now I can create and recreate results at will. I know things because I was willing to take myself through that journey. And I'm willing to take myself continually in that journey. I'm not done yet. I've talked about before that I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, not because I have to, far from it. It's because that is what keeps me on that path. That keeps me excited about the next day. Every single day, I'm excited about the next day, that day. I am so lucky. And I hope that something that I'm sharing with you will make a difference in that way. It's never too late. I've more than once said, it's not where you start in your life, it's how you finish. How do you want to finish? You need to ask yourself that question. On a regular basis, I've talked about that. Hold yourself accountable. Ask why. What am I doing? Ask what am I doing this for? Why am I doing this for? I hope that you'll get to that point. Think about it, and let's talk about it again. You'll get some serious growth, some emotional, mental, and physical serious growth. Talk soon.
Thanks for listening to the Serious Growth Podcast. For more episodes like the one you just listened to, subscribe to us on your mobile podcast app and leave us a review. If you'd like to reach out, you can find us online at seriousgrowth.com. Until next time, train smart and train hard.